Welcome to Response to Intervention. This is a crash course for you guys in the RTI process for our school. Basically, what is RTI? Well, Response to Intervention is a process mandated by both federal and state laws. You know that we've had to do it here at school. We do use a multi-tier model at school. We have Tier 1, which is basically core instruction, Tier 2, supplemental instruction, and Tier 3, which requires intensive instruction. In addition, once a child is placed in Tier 2, they will receive Tier 1 and Tier 2 services. If they're in Tier 3, they will receive Tier 3, Tier 2, and Tier 1 services. So just because they're in Tier 2 doesn't mean that they won't get Tier 1. They will get everything prior that they got before. You just keep adding things in addition to that. So what is required for RTI? Well, first you need to place your students in their tiers, either in Tier 1, 2, or 3. Each tier instruction will last at least 9 to 12 weeks. So if you have a child that comes into Tier 2, they will need to receive instruction in Tier 2. If they get 2 data points, then you can move them into Tier 3, but you have to wait at least 9 to 12 weeks in Tier 3 before you could make a referral. You will have to progress monitor these students, and you will have to evaluate the instruction based on the progress monitoring. This is an overview of the implementation. Step 1 is you will determine what tiers these students will be in. Step 2, you need to develop a plan or a schedule for the instruction. You guys can get together and work. Each grade level is going to be different. Some people have support. There's more support, especially for primary, more so than intermediate or middle school. Your PLCs will have to get together, and you guys will have to decide what's going to be the best schedule for you guys to be able to implement RTI. Once you decide your schedule and how you're going to implement RTI, you will need to implement the instruction. This will need to be specific. You will want to progress monitor students according to what instruction you're given, and then you will need to evaluate the student progress. Tier 1 would only be maybe the monthly or every couple months. Tier 2 would be every 2 weeks, and Tier 3 would be weekly. If at any point you see that your kids are not making any progress, or if they went down and they regressed instead of going up and making progress, then you may want to evaluate what strategy you're using and change up strategies, or you may need to add them down and let them go on to the next tier. Step 1, you will need to screen and analyze student work. You may be able to use the student folders that's been passed on year to year and go ahead and use the grades you made, ThinkLink results. You may want to do dibbles. So you can use last year's results, go ahead and place your students, or you can do a new screen this year to see what their tier that they're in. Once you determine what tier a student is in, then you will want to send home the parent letters and let them know what tier that their student in, what they're going to be receiving services in, and you may want to invite them. I would encourage you to invite them to the meetings. They may come, they may not, but at least that you tried. And part of RTI is informing the parents and asking them to be a part of this process. Step 2 would be challenge. This step is very challenging. It's going to require creative thinking. Like I said, the primary has more resources than the intermediate or middle school. You will need to schedule time for RTI instruction. You have Tier 1, which is your core program. That means all kids are going to get that. Tier 2 is a supplemental instruction. This will be 3 or 4 days a week for 20 to 30 minutes. You would want to progress monitor Tier 2 kids once every other week. That's once every 2 weeks. And Tier 3 would be very intensive. That's going to be 5 days a week, 30 to 60 minutes. So a kid in Tier 3 is going to be receiving an additional 60 to 90 minutes a day of additional instruction on top of the core. So they're going to get the core program, they're going to get Tier 2 services, and Tier 3 services. So just because that they go into Tier 3 doesn't mean you're going to cut out Tier 2. You will still want to supply them with some kind of supplemental instruction in addition to that core. So you can't cut out Tier 2 instruction just because they're going into Tier 3. How can all of this be done? Tier 2 instruction can be done in groups of 3 to 6 students. This could be done with a teacher center, with kids going around in different centers. Tier 3 instruction is for groups of 1 to 3 students. Primary has a reading lab and math lab for this. Intermediate middle school has no help at this time. You may have tutors or something that could be pulled out. You can use some of the software to do this and implement it in centers or something. You're going to have to get creative with your scheduling. I don't know exactly what everybody may have, but we can discuss this within your PLC groups to see what you can do and how you can implement this. Step 3 will be to implement the instruction. You're going to address student weaknesses and remediate skills. These need to be specific. It can't just be broad. So you're going to focus on something. In math, it may be simple calculation, adding and subtracting, and you will, can check for fluency. In reading, it may be, do they know the letters? Do they know the sounds? Can they put words together? Is it blending? But you need to pinpoint a weakness and work on that weakness and make sure that you're remediating that skill. Step 4 is progress monitoring. So once you've decided what skill you're going to work on, you need to make sure that you're progress monitoring that skill. Tier 2 again will be once every 2 weeks. Tier 3 will be once a week. You need to make sure that you pick one day. So you may progress monitor every Friday, or every other Friday for your Tier 2 kids. And you need to pick that. So if something come up on that Friday, that kid wasn't there, then you're going to just skip that week. You're not going to go back and make that up. Just pick up the next week. This will add validity and reliability to the progress data, and it just kind of helps. So if they're not there, you can just wait until the next week. You won't have to make an addition. So maybe you can set this into your schedule to make sure that you plan for progress monitoring. This is one of the most important and critical steps of the whole process, because this progress monitoring is what's going to drive your instruction and what's going to determine whether this kid is making progress or whether they're not. This has to be documented. Step 5 is to evaluate and reevaluate for that student progress. And you will want to do that for every 2 to 3 data points, so that if you see a child going down in their data points, then you will need to either change up the instruction because that instruction is not working for that student. So if you've got another strategy, if you've got another program that you could use, I would recommend that. It could be that a student if you're using software, you need to make sure that you're reviewing that software to make sure that they're making progress, because it may be that you need to sit down and they're not understanding something and they just need some one-on-one assistance with an adult in doing that program. But when you progress monitor and you see those data points and they're flat, there needs to be action. If you've changed up a strategy and the student's still not making progress, then they may need to go into the next tier. So if they're in Tier 2, they may need to move to Tier 3. If they're in Tier 3 already, after 9 to 12 weeks of instruction, and you have to document. So if you decide to change up instruction after 2 to 3 weeks, then you need to make sure you document that change of instruction, and then start with your new, and then make a line so that you can show that you've tried different strategies, that they've had multiple interventions and they're still not making progress. At that time, with your documentation, you would be able to call a meeting with the parents and let them know that this student may need to be referred. You could then bring the referral to the special education teachers, and they could have a consultant look at it, and then they may proceed with a referral for testing for special education. I've kind of got ahead of myself because this is when it is. So when there's not any more progress, and after the student has moved through these tiers. So if the kid comes in and they're in tier 2, it will take at least 18 weeks to 24 weeks for a kid that had been in tier 2 to move into to have a special education referral. Documentation is key, because if you do not have it documented, they will not accept that referral. Some of the resources that you can use. For reading in the primary, we have Lexia Reading and the Reading Lab. In intermediate middle school, there is software available that's called My Reading Coach. My Reading Coach is guaranteed to have them reading on grade level in a matter of 65 hours. So I would encourage you to use software, because this would be a tier 3 intervention easily, and you can use it. It's research based, and you could do maybe AR or some kind of progress data for centers for reading. In math, in the primary, we have Symphony Math, and there's a math lab with Miss Davis now. In intermediate middle school, you have Algebra School, Math School. We also have Symphony Math, which is instructional for K4. It's really remedial for the middle school and intermediate. That is available also. That is software as well. I would highly encourage you guys to use whatever software, whatever programs that you have, and to make it work. Intervention Central is a really great website for additional articles and resources for RTI. You can make behavior report cards, because behavior can also be issues and concerns. You can make these specifically for a student and save them, so you could just print them off each day or each week. This would be good progress data. There's also some screens, fluency probes for your progress monitoring. Another great website, one that I would highly recommend and is awesome, is EasyCBM. This is a free website. It has both reading and math for grades K-8. Some of these components can be taken online. Once they're taken online, you can go in and then view the student's results. You can also type in beside the student's name whatever intervention that you're using, and you can print these out. There's really nice charts and graphs, so this would be an excellent site for your progress monitoring and documentation. So it's a one-stop shop for progress monitoring and documentation. So I would highly recommend you using this site. With RTI, it's something that we have to do, and it's mandated now. And I want to make it as easy as possible for you guys. So we can meet in your PLC groups after you've reviewed this and you've looked at the other materials that I've emailed to you, and we can discuss and make a plan for each grade level, because first grade is going to be different than second will be different than fifth, and fifth will be different than eighth. So everybody's got to work together in these PLCs to try to determine the best avenue and the best schedule for these kids, so that we can get this done. Because if kids can't read and they can't do math, then they're going to struggle. So thank you. If there's anything else that you'd like to know more about or anything, just shoot me an email. Please fill out the surveys as I send them to you. They're online. They're quick, easy, 5 questions or less. So thanks, and I look forward to seeing you in the PLCs.